I am honored to be able to guest host the Public Power Underground this week. To start, I want to share a thought I had recently while on vacation in Lake Havasu, Arizona. If you haven't been, Lake Havasu is a pretty place this time of year, sunny, 80 degrees, and I had the opportunity to golf with some locals. And after talking about what a great day it was, I started thinking, what's it like in the summer? And so I asked them, what are the summer temperatures? And they said, oh, it ranges between 115 and 125. And I thought, oh, that's a problem. And so I said, well, I imagine the place gets pretty dead that time of year. And they looked at me really funny. They said, no, that's our busiest season. The lake is packed with people on all kinds of watercrafts. And one of the guys actually said his workday is adjusted so that they can get out on the lake in the early afternoon, and tourists come from all over to enjoy the lake. And I was kind of humbled and embarrassed that I misread the situation, and what I saw as a problem, hot weather, clearly others, the whole city and neighboring cities, see as an opportunity. Yet it's still crazy hot in Lake Havasu in the summer, but they're turning their cold water into a great opportunity, which got me wondering, how often in our industry do we focus a lot on the challenges and the disruptions and the problems rather than how to turn them into opportunities? So we do have a lot of opportunities in our industry right now. We have so many renewables and regulatory disfavor of thermal resources and increased weather volatility and complex markets and contracts and all of these things. And these disruptions absolutely have cost, adequacy, and reliability risks. But my lake experience had me kind of want to ask, can we look for opportunities in all of this? Can we accept the changes, because this really is the direction of the industry, and figure out how to best position public power and BPA to not just adapt, but to really benefit from these changes? Are there opportunities in new and different contract structures, market structures that let BPA extract the highest value for their flexible and capacity-rich asset? Are there new and different actions that utilities can take, like localized storage or demand response, that support their local community and enhance reliability? Many of us know the story of Kodak, the company that for decades owned the photo space, but missed the digital transition and went bankrupt. I don't want Bonneville or Public Power, with its amazing assets and advantages, to miss this transition. So I'm pledging to look for opportunities in all of this, and I think we can find them.
We started in hard times to bring us all in.
Welcome to the Public Power Underground, Public Power's premier infotainment program that covers public power and public power adjacent news from a power department's perspective. I'm Therese Hampton, this week's guest host, who many people thought I retired. But I haven't retired. I am traveling the country with my husband, who has fully retired, and I'm consulting in lots of different capacities.
All right. Thanks, Teresa. I'm Jason Fordney, editor of California Energy Markets and this week's podcast ambassador from News Data.
And Therese, I'm Crystal Ball. You forgot the celebrity part of guest hosts in there. I'm the deputy director of PNUC and an honorary member of the Power Department.
And I'm the creative director of Public Power Underground, manager of Glen Canyon PUD's Power Department, and producer for today's reporting, Paul Dockery. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Therese.
Thanks, Paul.
Celebrity, really, it was. You really needed it. And it was a great opening monologue.
I think it was intentional. It was intentional to drop the celebrity. It's just good to be a guest host. I think the real celebrity here is this podcast that was created 2 years ago and continues to exist and thrive.
You're really dodging the celebrity part. That was, I mean, I wrote it in there on purpose. It's a high honor that you need to accept, but it's great. And I really like the concept of like making sure you're open to the opportunity that is coming. We talked to Jesse Jenkins. This is in the intro section. I'm going to promote the bonus episode we had last week. Jesse Jenkins from Princeton University was on, and he talked about electrification, how we're going to increase our market share by like 50%. Talk about opportunity. Let's not miss the opportunity, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And really rethink how we're going to serve all that load, what we're going to serve it with, and how I worked on electrification issues actually 10 years ago. They were talking about vehicle to grid and how the vehicles can actually be your battery storage. It just can grow and grow. It can be more than we even could imagine today.
Yep. We're going to talk about some other good stuff. Let's get into it. You ready, Therese?
Sure. This is season 4, episode 9. On today's recording, we discuss all sorts of energy news, including Blue Wolf Capital, minimum pool elevation for power generation at Glen Canyon Dam, FERC's take on ROE, innovation at Douglas County PUD, a new president and CEO, and Arin reports with Crystal reporting, and a bunch of witty banner in between.
We're going to do our best to keep it light, right, Therese?
That's
We're going to do our best.
That's right. I know I get deep sometimes. Before we get started, Jason is going to read a quick word from our presenting sponsor.
The presenting sponsor of Public Power Underground is the Energy Authority. The Energy Authority is a nonprofit energy portfolio management company owned by public power entities like us. TEA's mission is to help clients maximize the value of their assets and meet their power supply goals. TEA does this by providing expertise in energy trading, advanced analytics, renewable solutions, and a whole lot more. Over 60 public power utilities have partnered with TEA to tackle their energy future. So if you're looking for an energy authority to partner with in navigating the uncertain future of our industry, visit teainc.org to learn more. That's teainc.org. The Energy Authority, they're as underground as it gets.
Thanks, Jason. We're starting this week, like most weeks, checking in on power market indicators in the Northwest with our first segment, Arin Reports with Crystal reporting.
Thanks, Therese. This is Arin Reports with Crystal reporting, where we try to get up to speed on Northwest market indicators from March 28th, 2022. I'm Crystal Ball, and I've got your market update for the week. Spring salmon have begun making their way upriver. 60 adult spring Chinook were counted at Bonneville, bringing the year to date today to 231. October through September flows at the Dalles for water year 2022 are currently forecasted to be 95% of normal, and April to September is 94%. Outflow at the Dalles peaked over the past week at 186 KCFS on March 25th. Day ending elevation at Grand Coulee yesterday was 1,252, and peak outflow this week was 167 KCFS on March 25th. Spot market power in the Northwest for delivery today is $38, with gas at $4.90 per MMBTU, translating to a spark spread of $3.70 and a heat rate of 7,800. In term markets, mid-sea heavy load for April is at $43.50. April gas at Sumas is trading at $4.50, translating to a heat rate of 9,600 BTU per kilowatt hour. August power at mid-sea is trading at $157.80, with Sumas gas at $5.61, translating to a heat rate of 28,000 BTU per kilowatt hour. Checking in on Answergy's aggregated basin data on snow in the region, the snow water equivalent for BC Hydro Generation Basin is 116% of normal. For mid-sea, 83%, and aggregating all the snow in the Columbia River Basin that'll flow through Bonneville Dam, they estimate there is 87% of normal snow blanket. Spending a beat at Bonneville's Balancing Authority, peak load this past week was 7,240. On March 25th at 7:15 a.m. During load's peak, hydro generation was at 11,700, wind gen was 13, conventional units were at 919, and nuclear was 1,152, all units in megawatts. And so for the December, January, February period sits at -1, Oceanic Nino Index. The multivariant ENSO index for January, February is -0.97, and the SST consolidated Nino forecast indicates that La Nina conditions are likely to continue through spring 2022. This week in NOAA climate forecast, the 6 to 10 day outlook has temp above normal for the region. Precipitation is expected to be near normal. The 30-day and 90-day outlook indicates normal temperatures and normal precipitation for the region. Special thanks to Answergy for letting us use their dashboards, and thanks to Ian for compiling this week's report. That's all we've got for this update.
So I got some fish back in there. Did you notice that, Crystal? We did some fish counts at Bonneville.
I did, and you dropped the ski report.
I did. It feels like we're probably at the end of the ski season. Is that right? I'm not a skier, so I'm just reading the cues.
Well, I just got back from a week in Whistler.
Oh, how was it? How was the snow?
Snow was great, all kinds of conditions.
Okay, all kinds of conditions. And Jason, I was wondering, should I start doing some sort of snow report, like include some snow in California for an Arin reports? Would you enjoy that? You're muted, just so you know.
Yeah, that would be great.
It's not great. It doesn't look like.
If there's
scary.
snow to report.
It's scary. It really is. Yeah, we had a strong start, and yeah, I live at about 5,000 feet, and our pond is already down pretty low, and this is supposed to be kind of the peak time, so it's gonna be a dry summer.
Yeah, is there anything else on water from California that I should attempt to include in Arin reports?
Well, we have our drought
fish?
update.
Is it a fish?
We don't get into fish too much in CEM. You know, we have a fish newsletter that talks about that a little bit. But we do a drought update each week.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
So that's a good one. Linda Daily Paulson's always on top of that.
Okay.
And yeah, we try to keep it fresh. But we end up repeating ourselves a lot this year. In other words, things are pretty dry.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul.
Anything else on like U.S. energy? Sorry, I cut you off, but any interesting that we should include? This EIA thing that I show once a week, I should actually include it in the show notes at some point because it's really useful on the whole energy markets.
Yeah, it's a lot of, you know, we have our price report, some of the same stuff, but no, I find it informative, and I'll try and think of anything that might be a good addition.
Paul, I tried to catch last week's written version of Arin reports before you replaced it with this week so that I could at least have some comparison, and I missed it. I should have been paying closer attention, but there are some comparisons from the week before that I think would be interesting, you know, just power trading, like how it changes week to week. You know, we report it weekly, but it's hard to remember what was reported the week before.
Yeah, we used to do the changes, and we should probably revert to doing some of the changes in power prices. That's probably super helpful. I will show you. I'll show you a neat little trick in the Google Docs at some point on how you can go look at prior versions. It's a tool that I've started to use because sometimes I forget how we had reported something in the past.
I need that tip.
Great skills. We're all learning, right? Keep learning, Therese. We got to keep learning, adapting, you know. We ready? Are we ready?
All right. Next up is our weekly walkthrough, public power and public power adjacent news in a segment we like to call Public Power Desktop. Paul, give us a typewriter.
I'm here for it.
And take it away, Jason.
Okay, start that again. Blue Wolf Capital is pursuing the restart of Intalco aluminum smelter in Ferndale, Washington. The demand for aluminum and the corresponding price has increased significantly since Alcoa curtailed and ultimately shuttered the plant in 2020. And the investment firm is reportedly looking to BPA to enter into a power supply arrangement to enable acquisition and reopening of the facility. A guest editorial in the Seattle Times by the president of the Washington State Labor Council, Larry Brown, put the onus on BPA to make it work, stating that, quote, "The only roadblock to restarting Intalco is the Bonneville Power Administration," unquote. Wow. The editorial assertion of Intalco's status as an existing direct service industrial customer of BPA was contested by a follow-up editorial published by the Seattle Times a week later, authored by Public Power Council's Scott Sims. You can find a comprehensive discussion of the status of this plant in the March 18th edition of Clearing Up, authored by Rick Adair. As always, links in the show notes. You can also go back to Clearing Up's coverage of Alcoa's termination of its contract with BPA and the shutting of the facility in case you want to know more about the facility's history.
Well, here's a good resource, I think, for clearing up just that historical context of the record. So, this is not a new issue, something that we have talked about in this region for decades. The direct service industries were a big economic driver for our region, and the contracts with Bonneville were very economical for those industries. But as Scott Sims pointed out in his letter, there was a closure of these plants, and the contract came to an end. So it's a good record that we have in clearing up about what's happened, and I'm glad that we have that clearing up resource.
Good to hear, and not an insignificant amount of load from a smelter, right? It's a pretty big megawatts.
It really is. It's a good sized load. I thought the thing that was so striking to me is it's always so easy to make Bonneville the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, it was so easy.
And
every 2 years I make Bonneville the problem when we do our rate hearings.
That's right.
Oh, it's Bonneville, so easy to make them the problem.
But the law and the contract's gotten away this time, right?
Yeah. And really it was, they provided notice of termination of the contract, right? The plant noticed and terminated their direct service. I do think there's a lot to learn here and think about as relates to the need for demand for industrial loads, right? Or industrial demand loads coming for economic development purposes. And we need to, come up with tools and mechanisms to be able to serve them as a region. We used to rely on Bonneville to do a lot of that stuff, but, in the next contract and in the future, we need to think about ways to competitively serve good loads in the region. And I do think, even though Bonneville may not be where you go do it, we do have the underlying tools as a power supply in the region. We have these underlying tools that we can do it cost effectively and cost competitively. We have the existing resources. While you can't contract directly with them, they do provide a lot of really valuable services since they exist. And we do have renewable resources that we can tap and develop within the region. So I think we're well situated to provide firm service. Just gotta come up, be adaptive, innovative, right, Therese? We got to learn to innovate a little bit.
And think about the opportunities. Back in 2001, they were the interruptible load, right, during the power crisis, and as we were managing through that. And so there's still some interruptibility. I agree with you, Paul. We need to find a way to get these industrial jobs, right, and to create the opportunity for industry. And maybe there's some opportunity in terms of their interruptibility and the services they can provide to the system.
Yeah, because as we have talked about and thought about what it's going to take to do the energy transition, one of the things is the demand side. We need to come up with tools for the demand side to be part of the solution. That you have, if you have variable fuel saving resources, as Jesse framed, wind and solar, you have on the demand side maybe some flexibility that you can provide them value for the valuable services they deliver. What do you think of that, Therese? What do you think of that, Crystal? It's good.
Yeah.
Is that a good pitch?
Yeah. Okay. I think we're ready for the typewriter. And Crystal's got the next story.
Right. Drought conditions continued to intensify in California, with record dry conditions triggering a reduction in state water allocations. The entire West is experiencing drought conditions as well. Of the 43 facilities in the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation operates in the Western U.S. and tracks on their website, 6 had the lowest observed storage levels in the past 30 years of data collection as of March 13 or 14, according to reporting by Lindsay Daly Paulson in the March 18th edition of California Energy Markets. There are broad implications of the drought, including risk to hydro generation projects. Lindsay Daly Paulson's article has an infographic provided by the Bureau that highlights just how close the Glen Canyon Dam on Lake Powell is to its minimum pool elevation for power generation, 35 feet to be precise. Glen Canyon Dam has 1,320 megawatts installed capacity and produces roughly 456 average megawatts. A similar phenomenon was reported at the Hoover Dam by the Associated Press in October of 2021. And you may recall that Edward Hyatt hydropower plant in Lake Oroville in California was temporarily shut down in August of 2021 because of low water levels. To learn more, we'll include a link to Lindsay Daly Paulson's article in the show notes.
Great, thank you.
Just interject quickly here, Jason. I went and found this reservoir storage dashboard. It's
cool.
Great.
Yeah,
and I'll include that in the show notes too. Great. I'm glad that you pointed it out.
Yeah, if you could send a link to that, I'd appreciate it. It's Linda Daly Paulson. Yeah, it's covering drought each week for us, doing a great job. Don't see this problem going away anytime soon. We had such a strong start to the water season in January. Really thought it was going to be a game changer. We got about 5 feet of snow where I live. But since then, I mean, I think it was I know it was the driest January and February on record in California. And, big questions for hydro output. It's going to be a dry summer, as I said before.
Yeah, well, this article focused a lot on California. I just want to plug the upcoming April 8th PNOC board meeting. We're going to have NOAA, Northwest River Forecast Center, on to provide the latest water supply forecast for the Northwest. And I did talk to the hydrologist today in preparation for that meeting, Henry Pye, and he did say drier in the south and just hanging on in the north. So a lot of concern about the trending conditions in the south, in California, but as well as the Northwest, Oregon, Idaho, Snake River Basin. It's really rough in the Snake River Basin.
Will you be streaming that meeting?
I know your editor, Mark Hornshaw, always calls in.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, good. It sounded something like something we could cover or shed some light on. Yeah.
You will, because
Okay.
we'll get the same update that the Northwest River Forecast Center provides on monthly,
Okay.
just with a little bit of perspective from our PNOC board members, including Suzanne Cooper at the Bonneville Power Administration.
All right.
It's Eastern Oregon is on the drought monitor, U.S. drought monitor, which I can also include links in the show notes. Eastern Oregon is in the exceptional drought category. It is as bad as some parts of Nevada. It's the region's drought conditions are prolonged and severe.
What Henry Pye told me today was a term called the 2-year mark. I asked him a little bit about that, and he said it's carryover from last year. So when you have like a consistent 2-year drought, it really makes people worried about the ability to refill reservoirs, because you don't, there's no catch up. So 2-year mark, very concerning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
any take on the, go ahead, Therese. Yeah, I was going to ask you.
I was just going to say, this story hits me in a whole different way now, because I'm living now in southern Utah. They actually get power from Glen Canyon Dam. We were at Lake Powell in October. And so I did, they talk about this a lot on the news, and they talk a lot about the history. The Colorado River has been below average since 2000. And they've been low before, they've rebounded, but never quite back to full, which just kind of goes to this. We are in a different space now. Risk profiles, almost of every resource and every load look different. And we gotta prepare for that. We gotta figure out how to plan for a different future, and history may not always be our best predictor.
Another opportunity though.
That's right. Okay, Paul, give me the typewriter and you've got the next prompt.
In a March 17th decision, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission rejected Pacific Gas and Electric's requested 13.3% return on equity. Instead, FERC lowered the base ROE to 9.3%. For context, Utility Dive's coverage of the decision notes that in a prior financial report, American Electric Power translated up 0.5% reduction in awarded ROE. They translated that to a reduction in annual pre-tax income of $55 million to $70 million. State regulators may take the FERC decision as a cue to rethink their own methodology for determining returns on investment. Ethan Howland's reporting in Utility Dive does an outstanding job of highlighting the benefits of the reduction to consumers and spotlighting the changing trend of decisions at FERC to take, quote, take a harder look at return on equity issues in favor of the consumer. For more, including a link to the Utility Dive article on the decision is included in the show notes. And I think, Jason, you have included some commentary on this in the, which section of California Energy Markets? Because it wasn't its own article, I don't think.
It's in our Potomac section.
In your
by Jim DePesa, yeah.
Okay.
Because of the DC connection there.
Right, yeah. And because, yeah, he was the only one I had to write it last week. But yeah, I focused on the other decision that we discussed that I think we're going to get into in a few minutes.
Yeah.
On ROE.
But you sent me this article, Crystal. What are your thoughts on it?
All I hear is we got to build transmission. And I think FERC feels the same way. So I think this is an interesting decision about how you encourage utilities to build transmission and also, think about the consumer on this end. I know FERC has the joint state task force, and I think there are plans to do something in the Northwest. But it's interesting to see, how we look at the opportunity here to incentivize utilities to build transmission, but also protect the consumer.
I'm sure the argument is lowering it is not going to incent new transmission, but I didn't look through this particular proceeding. So I'm not sure how often FERC, I assume quite often they go for a lower number that's requested, just like in utility rate cases. So.
Yeah, where's your head on this, Therese? I thought the article was interesting, and especially its framing. Where are you at?
Yeah, I was having the same reaction that Crystal had, really, which is that everything you hear is that there is this transmission constraint and we need to create the right incentives to build. So I don't really have a sense for how it's all going to balance out, but hopefully utility investments and utility transmission investments are still top of the list for folks, and that this won't discourage, and it really is just finding the right balance.
Yeah, so I'll provide the opposite view, or at least a different perspective on lowering the ROE, because really your ROE is intended to compensate for risk, and there's different types of risk for transmission, right? And a lot of it is actually regulatory. And one of the things FERC is certainly trying to do is decrease the regulatory burden, right? That's what you kind of spoke to, Crystal, on their procedures to try to make it the permitting framework a little bit easier and stuff like that. So as long as it's coupled with some, correlating reduction in risk on build, or and maybe some streamlined access to right-of-ways and stuff like that, I think that could not disincentivize. I did think the article actually was really interesting in their framing around the risk of the consumer price, what's the right word, inelasticity, or that, if you're passing these type of high ROEs on to your consumer, that can cause blowback on more transmission investment, which I thought was a really interesting framing, because I kind of started where y'all are too. What do you think of that kind of framing, that, hey, if you can reduce your risk but using some other mechanisms like reduced regulatory framework, and then you also help not get this blowback from consumers, maybe you actually are helping get transmission? I
think FERC found average risk for PG&E, and I recall Commissioner Danley, I don't know if he dissented in this, but he said, how can you consider it average risk in PG&E territory? So yeah, that's interesting. I also wonder about, you talk about public pushback. There's always a question of building these lines is really difficult, especially anywhere in wildfire country. Seems to be less controversial in the desert, but that's when I see like CAISO's recent $3 billion transmission plans, first thing I think is, building these lines is tough, really tough.
Yeah.
So it's not always financials.
Well, and I think of the 3 challenges. Sorry, Therese, maybe there's opportunity here. But of building transmission, and that's cost. And then that's the permitting. The second would be the permitting process. And then the third, people don't want it in their backyard.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, what is FERC going to be able to do on those 3 things? Cost, regulatory, and not in my backyard. It would be interesting to have, somebody from the state, Paul, and their perspective. I just think of, Boardman to Hemingway, and how long that has been, thought about by Bonneville, Pacificor, and Idaho Power, and the permitting challenges for that large high voltage or long distance high voltage transmission line. And it sometimes doesn't feel like we're any closer to getting that constructed than we have been before. And it's, I think there's a real need for that transmission capacity in our region. I think there are a lot of people who will agree with me. And yet, we just can't get steel in the ground.
Yeah, I always love a good numbered list.
And it's okay to have problems. We just need to look at them and see if we can create opportunities.
Yeah.
And Paul, I really like your connection. Like if this reduction in ROE is coupled with making permitting easier, but they're in 2 separate tracks. And could you really affect one with the other, or are you just going to take the hit and maybe not get the regulatory expediency that you might hope for? This is always the challenge in those spaces.
Yeah, and it's also the challenge of like they're just separate dockets, right? Like this is the docket I deal with this, and I'm trying to make you do hope that these people are good intentioned and thinking through strategically, but you got to do it in different dockets, and who knows how successful your overall strategy is going to be, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And the permitting is different state agencies. I mean, if you think about the OPUC looking at rates, and then the oh gosh, I just lost the commission that looks at the siting. There's an acronym for it, and I can't recall it. Thank you, FSEC. It sounds like a bad word, but
yeah. And to many, it probably is.
Yeah, and FERC has long talked about the opportunity to make this more like assert their jurisdiction for transmission right of ways that are cross state transmissions, right? Yeah. And that's a tool. That's a tool that may not be that popular, but right. I don't know. Right.
No, and DOE, US DOE, we heard a little bit from Michelle Maneri, just talking about those national corridors that would do, just that.
Yeah.
But kind of at a last resort. You don't want to.
We've had
those are levers you don't want to pull until you really got to pull them. Go ahead, Jason. So I keep cutting you off, Jason. I'm really
that's okay
today.
Yeah, we had those national interest transmission corridors. I remember a good 10 years ago, big process. As soon as it hit the public hearing phase, they shut it down. I mean, it's tough for the states. People really don't like the federal government building these things or making the decision to site them. So that's a really thorny one to get around, because without more transmission, it's going to be tough to integrate all these renewables. We hear a lot about that. So.
Absolutely. I love a beautiful transmission line.
I love a beautiful substation. It's one of the things that I will drive by a substation and I'll be telling Ashley, my wife, about it, and she'll just be like, "Paul, you need to pay attention to the road."
We've all done that one, pointing out to family members.
That's right.
Yeah.
Substation.
Best part of a road trip.
I also love some good underground too.
Yeah.
How do you see
underground? Yeah.
Okay, Paul, I think we're ready for the typewriter, and Crystal's got the next story.
All right. Douglas County PUD broke ground on a 5 megawatt pilot renewable hydrogen production facility near Baker Flats, East Wenatchee, a year ago on March 8th, 2021. The facility is expected to start producing green hydrogen by the end of 2022. A year later, and there is hope that it'll evolve to more than a single pilot project. Emily Thornton from the Wenatchee World reports that Douglas County PUD is acquiring 409 acres near their Baker Flats hydrogen facility and Wells Dam project, which, according to PUD spokesperson, is in case the PUD wants to build on it later. For more on the land acquisition, we'll link to Emily's article in the show notes. Make sure you're also subscribed to Joel Meyer's Energy News Digest as well.
I love this story. Just going to say this. Now, while this is just the acquisition of land, the hydrogen story at Douglas County is a great story of finding opportunity in this changing landscape. And I don't know how well everybody knows Douglas, but Douglas has never been known as a risk-taking utility. And yet they stepped out in front on hydrogen, like way out in front on hydrogen. And it just may be a big win for the region, for all the other hydro producers. And I heard Douglas give a presentation a while back where they said they started down this path because they wanted to manage the variability of their hydro production. They had a problem on their system, right? And they were trying to find some creative ways of addressing it. Actually, and different ways than everybody else, right? Who would, structure market deals and things like that. So I just think what they've done here could have great reliability and economic benefit to the region. So hats off to them for seizing the opportunity and that they do and use even more. These are things that we were just talking about, transmission constraint, right? It is the demand side. It is these biofuels and these other things that may just be the solution when we can't kind of move towards what have been some traditional solutions.
I didn't know much about this pilot project until I got the assignment to read this story. So I looked into it a little. And this is one of the reasons why I love being a co-host of Public Power Underground. I learned so much when Paul asked me.
When you did your research, you realized that they presented at PNUC a couple years ago. That's probably where you saw it. A couple years ago,
well before me.
Yeah. Anyway,
tenure, Paul.
you were going somewhere with it, but yeah, I saw it. It was Gary Ivory presented at PNUC, and that's where I saw this for the first time. Yeah,
thanks for the PNUC
you
plug.
Learned something. You were researching. Go, Crystal. I cut you off.
Well, I think it's time to for PNUC to have Douglas back.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But there are two videos on Douglas's website that short little clips. You got it. That talk about this project. And did you know they're going to produce 2 tons of green hydrogen a day by using power from Wells Dam, and that's green hydrogen. I just thought it was so cool. They anticipate piloting hydrogen cars in its own fleet. And they also think about opportunity to fuel stations in the state and to sell it to industrial gas users. Great opportunity. Glad you made that connection, Therese. This is an interesting way to look at a problem.
Yeah, and they really did champion this because they were the ones at the state legislature getting authorization to do stuff like this, right, Therese? They were part of, I think in here it's Senate bill, the 2019 authorization. They were trying to get the state to enable this so that PUDs could actually do this type of work.
And a unanimous vote out of the Senate or somewhere within the state legislature. It was one of those things like, what gets a unanimous vote out of the legislature? So it's pretty remarkable.
And it's a progressive idea.
Yeah.
Very and cool. We talked, Matt and I talked to Chris Craker from Northwest Natural last week. It'll be in the bonus episode coming up. And, we talked a little bit about industrial uses of hydrogen, where you can't convert an industrial process to be electric, an electric source for that production. Hydrogen is an easier substitute for some of these industrial processes. It's a really important part of, for the region's economic development for industrial loads in the region that may want to locate here.
It all ties together. It all ties together.
It's like these episodes are intentionally linked. I don't don't know. I assure you, there is really no intentionality around the links between the articles. It's like me getting a text from Crystal and Therese and like trying to figure it out on a Thursday afternoon. But
that's the connection, your network.
That's right. I'll say one other thing about this, which is when the Washington State did their energy strategy, and in some of the different modeling work that we did when I was at PGP and engagement with others, these hydrogen and the biofuels are how we manage all the oversupply, at least in the modeling sets. It's how you manage all the oversupply that comes when you're building out the renewables to meet the policy goals. So it does have the potential to really be pretty significant shift in how we think about energy and energy oversupply.
Yeah, absolutely. Really useful for the balancing side of it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So let's hit the typewriter and move on.
Okay, on Thursday, March 24th, the Western Power Pool announced the selection of Sarah Edmonds as president and CEO. According to the Western Power Pool's press release, Edmonds was selected by the WPP board after a multi-month search for an experienced energy industry professional with demonstrated knowledge of the increasingly complex regional and interregional grid issues faced by the Western US and Western Canada. Sarah joins the Western Power Pool after serving as a director of transmission and reliability services at Portland General Electric, Oregon's largest electric utility, and a Northwest Power Pool member.
This is really great news. This is just a really good selection. The Power Pool, yes, I agree. The Power Pool has a really strong history in the West, and they have been growing into the needs of today in the last couple of years. And to have Sarah, she's such an exceptional leader. She listens well and she finds winning solutions. And we've watched her over the last couple of years in the role that she's served in the Western Power Pool process, listening to public power, understanding what's important to public power, and kind of finding the solutions with the investor-owned regulatory kind of environment as well. And they really are building a terrific team at the Power Pool. So this is good news for us. I think this is really great news.
This is exciting. I think Sarah has the 2 C's. There you go. She is collaborative and curious.
Ah, nice. I like that.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
So how well do you know Sarah, Therese, or Crystal? Because I feel like Rebecca Sexton, also from the Power Pool, was one of the first celebrity guest hosts. I think she was the third. Do you think maybe we can get Sarah on as a celebrity guest host at some point?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I got it in. I've got it in.
We'll use that network. And I think that there were many people quoted in the WPP's press release saying wonderful things about Sarah, representing all kinds of perspectives. I think she will continue the tone that Frank Frangi has set as being, a collaborative entity. And I think that's what we are really going to need as the region comes together and works through these resource adequacy issues and looks for new opportunities.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, congratulations, Sarah. We're looking forward. Clearly, Paul's looking forward to having you on, and we're looking forward to working together with you.
Absolutely.
So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll close out the episode with a quick rundown of news stories we didn't get to in our TLDR segment we're calling Energy West Lite.
Northwest Public Power Association believes in public power. For 82 years, Northwest Public Power Association has supported public power utilities and other associates in the greater Pacific Northwest by offering education, training, communications, government relations, and services like RFP and job postings. In addition to public power, what else is important to NWPPA? Local control, member needs, integrity, and quality products and services. Today, NWPPA proudly serves 155 member utilities and more than 325 utility industry associate members. I do this every time, and I could just record this and use the same one. And then I probably would be able to record it without a bunch of mess ups in my reading, but what fun would that be? Learn more or register for a class at nwppa.org. That's nwppa.org. Believe in public power.
Great. Next up, we are TLDRing, new verb, our way through the news in a segment we're calling Energy West Lite.
You know what else I need? I need some like intro music for Energy West Lite. I have some for Arin Reports. We got the typewriter for the public power desktop. You know what I need, Jason? Since we're going to do this Energy West Lite, I need some of your Energy West, your intro for that. And maybe we can get the voice. I don't know who you use as a voice for the introduction on Energy West, but it is outstanding. It sounds so professional.
Yeah, I like it. That's my drumming on the beginning of it. So a little plug there.
Oh,
Yes. So you can just sample it for me and I can use it for Energy West Lite. Okay.
Yep.
You get where I get you in? Okay.
Yeah, the voice comes from Pioneer. They've really jazzed up our intro. So yeah, they do a great job. And we're doing this.
This is also a promo for Energy West, who has a
Right.
weekly podcast that does the same thing we do, only you get it every week and it's way shorter. So think about it. Okay. This is Energy West Lite, a segment where we TLDR our way through the news. I'm Paul Dockery.
And I'm Therese Hampton.
And we're lightening Energy West. There we go.
We might need a little work on that. In fish news, a draft white paper presented to the Washington Fish and Wildlife Commission concludes that impacts of non-tribal recreational fishing in the Columbia River's cold water refuges are so small that closing those areas to fishing would do little to help threaten steelhead populations.
Next up, we have a news story about millions of data points that could provide a clearer picture of how juvenile Chinook behave at Columbia River dams and how well they survive through the different downstream passage routes are being offered by the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory for use in other studies. So the millions of data points are being offered by Pacific Northwest National Labs. In addition to the data set, PNNL is also releasing the source code for using the data in its hydropower biological evaluation toolset, or HBET, which generate more than 4,000 positions of the fish in 3 dimensions.
Thanks, Paul. Despite, in a different story, despite Washington's increasingly stringent energy efficiency requirements for new buildings, builders complied with commercial building energy codes at very high rates, according to a new study from the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance. Researchers found high code compliance among the new construction, about 85% across the state. But the study is not a code compliance report. Its main goal was to see if current EE practices were being effectively implemented.
Yeah, really hopeful. Like new stock that's really energy efficient is super helpful. So it's really good. Next up, California's grid operator has begun the weighty task of compiling input from the 11 weeks of stakeholder meetings as it works through its initial proposal for an extended day-ahead energy market across the West. The California Independent System Operator is wrapping up the working group stage of the EDAM process, Extended Day-Ahead Market, EDAM, and will issue a straw proposal in late April for bringing the day-ahead market across the footprint of the Western Energy Imbalance market.
Interesting. And shortly after that, government.
And then I read your article. I read your, see, I messed it up again. Last week, I messed up the sequencing. Again, this week, I messed up the sequencing. And I just took it. I was like, it's my turn. I'm going, even though it has Therese's name. So now, Therese, you're going to read all the Paul ones and I'll read the Therese.
That's fine.
We'll see how it goes. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
A federal appeals court decision this week upheld the award of a federal incentive for ISO participation to California utilities, rebuffing the California Public Utility Commission and its argument that participation by utilities in the California Independent System Operator is mandatory, not voluntary. If membership in the ISO is mandatory, an incentive is not needed, the CPUC argued. But the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit on March 17th ruled against the CPUC and other state agencies, which had challenged a Federal Energy Regulatory Commission order on remand that found that participation in the California ISO is voluntary, and therefore the incentives are warranted.
Very good job reading that. I practiced that one, but you couldn't have because it was assigned to me. Youth activists on March 15th filed suit against the state of Utah, naming Governor Spencer Cox and several state agencies for maximizing, promoting, and systematically authorizing fossil fuel development as a matter of official state policy. The youths in Natalie R. versus State of Utah assert that state law and energy policy actively causes and contributes to the global climate crisis and negatively affects Utah's air quality, causing direct and disproportionate harm to young people and violating their state constitutional rights to life, health, and safety.
That one hits a little close to home. From the Potomac, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission on March 24th reverted two controversial natural gas policy statements to draft status after they drew fire from industry groups and lawmakers who said they would hinder development of interstate gas pipelines and liquefied natural gas terminals.
And lastly, the Western Market Exploratory Group, WMEG, WMEG, is that what we went with? Is it WMEG or we going with
Western
like
Meg. Oh, okay.
WMEG, that's what we're going to go with. WMEG has hired Utilicast, an energy consulting firm, to evaluate regional market structures across the West. The group of 14 Western utilities announced on March 23rd.
Great.
I changed the names. I changed the names live. I changed the names in the script. Did you notice that, Therese? That's very good of me.
Thanks to Public Power Underground's production partners at News Data for letting us use their leads, and thanks to Ian for compiling them. Now back to the crew to close out the episode. Wait, that's me, or is it me? What?
Yeah, no, we gotta do we're reading out together, all together. Paul and Therese together. Ready? That's Energy West Lite. It was perfect. No notes. No notes. That was perfect. Anything you like in that? You want to talk about, Jason? Anything you got in there you wanted to pull out?
Yeah, lots of interesting stuff this week. You know, the EDAM was something that CAISO kind of jump-started again last year. It's a really intensive effort, and as the article talks about a little bit, it's really tied into a lot of other initiatives that are going on. It's really a moving target and a fast timeline. I think the straw proposal is supposed to be out next month. Yeah, and the ROE, you know, the ROE adder for RTO ISO participation has been, I've been writing about it for years, the controversy around it. It actually flows from Energy Policy Act of 2005, which was, you know, a very industry-friendly legislation, pretty much engineered by Dick Cheney. So it's a little bit of a vestige of that, but as we were saying before, to get more transmission built, it's seen as, you know, a good tool for that. And what I pointed out in the article is this appeals court decision basically struck down the CPUC's requirement that utilities have to get permission from the PUC to leave CAISO, which I found interesting. The court just said it's not supported in California law. You know, I don't see any utilities leaving CAISO, but that's kind of a consequence of this ruling. And the ROE adder for the moment is safe and sound at FERC.
Interesting. Anything in there, Therese, you wanted to dig a little bit deeper in? I thought I had some curious things out of that WMEG article.
Yeah. I don't know that I have a lot on that, except for it'll be very interesting to see what those utilities come up with, right? They've got Utilicast, they've got a good facilitator to organize them and things that they might hope to accomplish. And it's just as interesting where they go with it. What did you see in it?
You know, I wasn't sure if I knew that the WMEG added a couple members since they were first announced. And I kind of noticed that in here. I think who was it? Public Service of Company of New Mexico came on in January 2021. Did I get that right? And then LADWP. That was after the announcement that I remember. And I think I follow the news fairly closely, and I missed it. And Crystal didn't text me, and then I just missed it completely. What's up, Crystal? Did you all know that, or was that news to you too?
That's news to me. I thought it was a dozen. So with those two adders, 14.
Yeah. And I'm right. I found it now. It's Pacific Company of New Mexico and LADWP both joined after it was announced in October.
The only California member being LADWP, which is interesting. If you look at the quote here from their spokesperson, it says the newly formed group could help shape the markets for a greater West-wide benefit, perhaps sooner rather than later. That's probably their motivation for getting in. Other proposals that we see for a Western market are a lot bigger lift. So yeah, some interesting stuff from that.
And somewhat related to these, but not in the stories, but just in the world that I operate in, the governance conversation associated with the EDAM market design will shortly follow. Once that market design proposal comes out, I think the end of April, then the governance conversations that might pair with it will go with it. And governance is always, the big issue in no matter what path you're going to walk down, right? Whether WMEG can kind of move something, whether it's SPP, whether it's CAISO, governance is always an important aspect of it.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of discussion of governance in the working group last Friday, which I know you participated in, or it was 2 Fridays ago on the EDAM. So another moving piece to that whole equation. But yeah, I'd be interested in talking with you more about it, the governance issue, how it fits into the wider Western market, what you're seeing, what the discussion is.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to talk to Therese about governance.
Yeah,
you were trying to come in, Crystal, a couple of times. Did you have another topic you wanted to talk about a little bit?
I'm really glad that Therese made that connection back to the EDAM and governance. That's one of the places where I was trying to come in, but also on the Western or WMEG Utilicast. They're very experienced. They've done a lot of this work before. They've got a great template. And so, like Therese said, interesting to see what the utilities do with it, but they will, I think, create, a roadmap, do some comparison, and I think really kind of live up to that work group's name as far as exploratory. So I'm very interested to see what comes out of that and how the utilities share it.
Yes, me too. They can crystallize conversations, right? There's a force there that can really allow the region to hone in on certain aspects of market development.
Yeah, it's good to see.
Yeah.
I did notice the P&M guys said, one of the things that attracted them was a participatory governance structure, which is more like a multi-state, like SPP or MISO, as compared with the single state CAISO, which has a board appointed by the state's governor, which always is a stumbling block to the regionalization.
Yes. This week, by the time this airs, we will have already had, there's a general session meeting of the Governance Review Committee where we're going to go over the comments that we received. The Governance Review Committee for CAISO for EDAM asked folks what should be in scope in this governance review. And there's a very consistent theme, consistent with what Jason, you just mentioned, that there is a recognition that there's a limitation of where the GRC can go, but some very clear and consistent interest by participants of what they would want to see in the long term, which is a governance structure that is free from appointment by a single state.
Sure.
I think even though it's gonna happen, I think we could still call that breaking news. So we're just gonna go with, hey, you get over here. The Dan Catchpole breaking news thing. I still haven't gotten the teletype. Nobody sent me the teletype soundbite, so I can't back it with the teletype. I just have a typewriter, but there's it's not even the teletype's the wrong word. There's the beep, 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 beep from the
the
AP
Morse code.
machine.
Yeah, SOS Morse code. No.
Yeah, there's an AP machine, right, Jason? Do you have one at California Energy Markets?
It's a little bit before my time, Paul.
Hey, you get over here. Oh, that's not before your time though.
I'm more of a fax guy.
You still do that, don't you? You're like, hey, reporter, get over here. I love that. Anyway, thank you, Therese. And you were once the chair of the Governance Review Committee?
I am still the chair of the
Governance
Review Committee. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you.
Committed to continuing to represent the interests of public power, right? So here I am on Public Power Underground saying, send me your cards and letters, right? I am here to represent you.
Thanks
when
for
we
representing.
get some public power merch, are you gonna wear your public power merch?
Oh, well, if I could get some public power merch, right, Paul? Tell me
so
what you
close.
have.
Me
What do you
too.
got
So
there?
close. I have examples of public power merch that I've been buying to make sure it's good quality merch. You know, we need good quality merch.
Yeah.
There will be sweatshirt. I'm very excited about all the merch. We're so close. We're so close.
That's terrific. It looks great. It looks great. And I think we'd all love to have it. And I'll wear it to every GRC meeting, just so they know.
Paul's saying we got to buy it though.
Yes, you have to buy it. No one's getting it for free, except for Frank and Cropera, the dean of the College of Engineering, who got me into the renewable industry.
Oh.
Frank, if you're out there listening, I'll give you free merch. I'll give you free merch. He's the only one though. The rest of you got to pay for it.
A little jealous.
Okay.
But wait, don't these guest hosts and co-hosts? Wait,
That's
isn't
what
there
I've been
something there?
saying.
I don't
Nope.
know. I
Nope,
think...
you're just free labor as far as I'm concerned.
I don't know. With celebrity status, it sounds like Teresa's an influencer.
Yeah, I mean, she would normally get a swag bag if this were a commercial endeavor, but as I was reminded on Energy Twitter, this is not a commercial endeavor. It never will be. So you're just gonna have to pay for it. And the proceeds go to Share the Warmth, our low-income support fund for Clatskanie PUD. Give Clatskanie PUD some love here. This is beyond the pale of what's normally involved in being a power manager for an electric utility.
That's right.
Yes.
And we thank you. Paul.
Send us, tell us where to send the check.
Yeah.
That's right. Hopefully it's all going to be seamless transaction. I won't have to touch money. I don't want to touch it. It's out of there. Get out of here. Okay. Do we need a typewriter? I feel like maybe there's just a typewriter.
Okay, that's all the news we're covering this week. The next regularly scheduled episode will be recorded April 11th and published April 14th. The episode will feature a celebrity guest host from our presenting sponsor, the Energy Authority. To make sure you don't miss it or bonus episodes in the meantime, you can sign up for an unintrusive newsletter with links to all the ways to consume this fascinating content at publicpowerunderground.substack.com. Otherwise, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app.
Super easy, right, Crystal? It's very unintrusive. You never feel intruded by a public power underground email. Like, you just ignore it if you don't want to read it. It's fine.
Right.
Therese,
It's for energy enthusiasts.
It is for energy enthusiasts. You're exactly right. Therese, do you feel valued and appreciated?
I do. Yes. Thank you.
I enjoyed this so much. It's been great to have you on and to include your insights, your celebrity status. So thank you very much. Crystal, did you enjoy it?
This was always fun. Thank you for including me.
Yep. Jason, did you have fun?
It was great. Yeah.
Good.
Well, as always, send any news, questions, opinions, corrections, or complaints to Paul on Twitter at a power manager, or if you're a friend of the Underground, you can send any of us a note. You don't have to be subscribed to News Data's weekly newsletter to get this podcast, but it sure makes the podcast make a lot more sense. And that's all for this week. Thanks for tuning in.
See how fast I can do it, just for fun. Public Power Underground is a production of Clatskanie PUD and News Data. The views expressed here are our own and not the official views of Clatskanie PUD, News Data, or the organization of the guests also appearing on Public Power Underground. Public Power Underground is public power and public power adjacent news from a power department's perspective. It's written and directed by Clatskanie PUD's Power Department, led by me, Paul Dockery, and it's edited and published by the stellar team at Pioneer Utility Resources, led by associate producer Sarah Edmonds. Our theme song, Roll On Enthusiast, was rewritten, performed, and recorded by Arin and Ian Bledsoe. And special thanks to our celebrity guest host, Therese Hampton. Thank you so much for participating in this week's episode. Public Power Underground for electric utility enthusiasts. Public Power Underground, very valued and appreciated.